The will reading tomorrow, you're out of here. Derek's voice was ice cold as he stood in the doorway of what used to be their bedroom. He didn't even look at her. Just stared at his phone, probably texting Vanessa, the woman he'd been sleeping with for the past year. Simone sat on the edge of the bed, her hands folded in her lap. She didn't cry. She'd run out of tears weeks ago when she first discovered the affair. Now she just felt numb, watching her husband of 10 years treat her like garbage he couldn't wait to throw out. "Did you hear me?" Derek snapped, finally looking up. "Tomorrow morning, 9 o'clock. The lawyer reads Dad's will. I get everything and you get nothing. I've already talked to my attorney. You signed that prenup, remember? You leave this marriage with exactly what you brought into it. Nothing." Simone remembered the prenup. She'd been so in love back then, so sure their marriage would last forever. She'd signed without reading it carefully. Derek's father, Harold, had even pulled her aside and told her to get her own lawyer to review it. But she'd been too trusting, too naive. "I've already found you an apartment," Derek continued, his voice dripping with fake generosity. "A studio in the bad part of town. Rent's cheap. You'll need to find a job pretty quick though. I'm not paying you a dime after tomorrow." He walked closer and Simone could smell expensive cologne. The same cologne she used to love. Now it made her sick. "Vanessa and I are getting married next month," he said, smiling cruelly. "We're going to live here. In this house. The house my father left me. So yeah, pack your stuff tonight. And don't even think about taking anything valuable. I've got cameras everywhere now." Simone finally spoke. Her voice was quiet but steady. "Your father loved you, Derek. Even when you never visited him. Even when you were too busy to see him during his last months." Derek laughed. It was an ugly sound. "My father was senile. He didn't know what day it was half the time. But he was smart enough to leave everything to his only son. That's me, in case you forgot." He turned to leave, then paused at the door. "Oh, and Vanessa's coming over tonight. We're celebrating early. You can sleep in the guest room. Actually, you know what? Sleep in the basement. I don't want you anywhere near us." The door slammed behind him. Simone sat in the silence. But she wasn't thinking about packing. She was thinking about Harold. 3 years ago, Harold had a stroke. It left him weak on one side and struggling with his speech. Derek had wanted to put him in a nursing home immediately. "He's done," Derek had said. "No point wasting money on someone who's basically already gone." But Simone had insisted Harold come live with them. She'd fought Derek on it, which was rare for her back then. Something about the way Derek talked about his own father had made her sick. Harold had built a successful manufacturing company from nothing. He'd raised Derek alone after Derek's mother left. And now Derek wanted to dump him in some facility and forget about him. So Harold moved into the downstairs bedroom. And Simone became his primary caregiver. At first it was hard. Harold was frustrated by his condition. He couldn't say the words he wanted to say. His right hand shook badly. But Simone was patient. She helped him with physical therapy exercises. She learned to understand his halting speech. She read to him every evening. And slowly Harold improved. His speech got clearer. His hands steadied. The doctors were amazed. Derek never noticed. He was too busy at the company, too busy with his new assistant Vanessa. During those 3 years, Simone and Harold had countless conversations. He told her about building his business. About the mistakes he'd made. About his regrets with Derek's mother. About his disappointment in the man Derek had become. "He used to be a good boy," Harold said one evening, his words slow but clear. "Somewhere along the way he got greedy. Got mean." Simone had nodded, fighting back tears. She was already suspecting Derek's affair by then. "I see everything, you know," Harold had continued, his blue eyes sharp despite his failing body. "I see how he treats you. I see who he really is. What can I do?" Simone had whispered. "I have nothing. No money saved. No real career anymore. I gave it all up to support him." Harold had reached out with his good hand and squeezed hers. "Trust me, sweetheart. Justice is coming. I promise you that." At the time, Simone hadn't understood what he meant. Harold had died 3 weeks later, peacefully in his sleep. Simone had found him in the morning and wept like she'd lost her own father. Derek had barely cried at the funeral. He was too busy on his phone, already planning for the inheritance. Now, sitting alone in the bedroom, Simone remembered Harold's promise. Justice is coming. She stood up and walked to the window. Outside, she could see Derek's Mercedes in the driveway. Vanessa's car pulled up behind it. The woman got out, wearing a tight red dress and heels. She was laughing at something on her phone. Simone watched Derek come outside to greet her. He wrapped his arms around Vanessa and kissed her deeply, right there in the driveway where any neighbor could see. Where Simone could see. Vanessa looked up at the bedroom window and smiled. It was a smile of victory. A smile that said, "I won." But Simone didn't look away. She met Vanessa's eyes and thought about Harold's words again. Justice is coming. Tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock, the lawyer would read the will. Derek was certain he knew what it said. He'd been counting on it for 3 years, ever since Harold got sick. But Simone remembered something Derek didn't know. About 2 weeks before Harold died, a lawyer had come to the house. Not Derek's lawyer. A different one. Harold had been very clear that he wanted privacy for the meeting. Simone had helped Harold get dressed that day, had walked him to the study, and then had left them alone. When the lawyer left 2 hours later, Harold had seemed tired but satisfied. "It's done," he'd said to Simone. "Everything's done now." Simone had assumed he meant his will was finalized. She hadn't thought much about it. But now, standing at the window watching her husband with his mistress, she wondered. Harold had been a smart man. A careful man. He built a multi-million-dollar company through intelligence and planning. Had he really left everything to the son who'd abandoned him? To the son who'd stolen from the company? To the son who'd treated his wife like trash? Or had Harold seen something Derek couldn't see? Simone took a deep breath and turned away from the window. She opened her closet and pulled out a suitcase. She'd packed tonight like Derek ordered. But not because she was leaving defeated. She'd packed because one way or another her life was about to change. Tomorrow at 9 o'clock she'd know the truth. Tomorrow at 9 o'clock, someone's world was going to end. And Simone was beginning to hope, for the first time in months, that it wouldn't be hers. Simone folded clothes mechanically, her mind drifting through the years of her marriage. 10 years. A decade of her life given to a man who now couldn't wait to throw her out. She'd met Derek at a business networking event. She was 26, working as a junior analyst at a consulting firm. He was 30, confident and charming, wearing an expensive suit and talking about the family business he'd inherit someday. He'd approached her with a drink and a smile, and she'd been flattered by his attention. Their courtship had been intense. Derek pursued her aggressively, taking her to fancy restaurants, buying her gifts, making her feel special. He told her he'd never met anyone like her. That she was different from other women. That she understood him. Looking back now, Simone could see the red flags she'd ignored. The way Derek talked down to servers at restaurants. The way he dismissed her opinions if they differed from his. The way he expected her to always be available, but would cancel plans with her if something better came up. But she'd been young and in love. She'd convinced herself those things didn't matter. They got married after a year of dating. Harold had paid for a beautiful wedding. Derek's father had walked her down the aisle since her own parents had passed away years before. She remembered Harold whispering to her at the altar, "You can still run, you know. I won't be offended." He'd been joking. Sort of. But there'd been something serious in his eyes. She'd laughed it off and married Derek anyway. The first few years hadn't been terrible. Derek worked long hours at the company, but so did most ambitious men, she told herself. She quit her job when he asked her to, agreeing that it made more sense for her to manage their home. They'd have children soon anyway, Derek said. But children never came. After 3 years of trying, they saw a fertility specialist. The problem was Derek's low sperm count. The doctor recommended treatments, but Derek refused. He became angry whenever she brought it up. Eventually, he stopped sleeping with her altogether. "It's too stressful," he'd said. "All this pressure to perform. Just drop it, Simone." So she dropped it. She pushed down her dreams of being a mother and tried to be content with her role as Derek's wife. Then Harold got sick and everything changed. When Harold moved in, Derek's true colors emerged fully. He treated his father with contempt, speaking to him like he was an idiot child. When Harold struggled to eat or dress himself in those early days after the stroke, Derek would mutter about how pathetic it was. Simone had been horrified. This was Derek's father. The man who'd raised him alone after his mother left. The man who'd built the company Derek now worked for. The man who'd given Derek every opportunity in life. And Derek treated him like garbage. Caring for Harold had given Simone purpose again. She'd thrown herself into learning about stroke recovery, physical therapy, speech therapy. She'd celebrated every small victory with Harold, every word he relearned, every step he took with less assistance. During those quiet evenings reading to Harold or helping him with exercises, or just talking about life, Simone had felt more connected to him than she'd felt to Derek in years. Harold was kind. He was grateful. He saw her as a person, not just an accessory. And he'd known about the affair before she did. Simone paused in her packing, remembering the day 9 months ago when everything came crashing down. She'd stopped by Derek's office to drop off lunch. His assistant Vanessa had been away from her desk, so Simone had gone straight to Derek's office door. It was slightly open. She'd heard them before she saw them. Vanessa's laugh, high and flirtatious. Derek's voice, warm in a way he never sounded with Simone anymore. "When are you going to leave her?" Vanessa was saying. "Soon," Derek replied. "Once my dad dies and I inherit everything. The prenup protects me completely. She'll get nothing and then I'm free. And we can finally be together. We can be together now, baby. Who cares what she thinks? She's so pathetic, she probably doesn't even notice I'm never home." Vanessa had giggled. "She does seem pretty clueless. I can't believe she bought that story about you working late all those nights." Simone had stood frozen outside the door. Then Vanessa had said something that made her stomach turn. "I still can't believe we did it on your desk last week. What if she'd walked in?" Derek had laughed. "That might have been fun." The look on her face. Simone had turned and walked away silently. She'd made it to her car before she started shaking. She'd driven home in a daze and sat in the driveway for an hour, trying to process what she'd heard. That evening, when Derek came home, she'd watched him carefully. He'd kissed her on the cheek absently, like always. He'd asked what was for dinner. He'd complained about a problem at work. All normal. Then he'd announced he was going out with clients and wouldn't be home until late. She'd nodded and said nothing. After he left, she'd gone to Harold's room. The old man had been reading with his good hand, his reading glasses perched on his nose. "What's wrong, sweetheart?" he'd asked immediately. Harold had always been able to read her. And she'd told him everything. Harold had listened without interrupting, his face growing darker with each word. When she finished, he'd been quiet for a long moment. "I knew he was cruel," Harold finally said. "But I didn't know he was this cruel. And I didn't know about the girl. What do I do?" Simone had asked, tears finally falling. "I have nothing, Harold. I gave up my career. I have no savings of my own. The prenup means I get nothing if we divorce. I'm trapped." Harold had taken her hand in his shaking one. "No," he'd said firmly. "You're not trapped. Derek thinks he's won. He thinks once I'm gone, he'll have everything and you'll have nothing. But he's wrong." "How can he be wrong?" "The will." "The will isn't what Derek thinks it is," Harold interrupted. "I've been watching him for 3 years now. I've seen how he treats you. I've seen how he treats me. And I've been watching what he does at the company." Simone had looked at him in confusion. "What do you mean?" "Derek thinks I'm senile. He thinks I don't know what's going on. But I have friends. I have people who keep me informed. And Derek has been stealing from the company, Simone. He's been embezzling money for 2 years. He thinks I don't know, but I know everything." Simone's eyes had widened. "He's stealing from his own inheritance?" "He's greedy and stupid," Harold said bluntly. "He can't wait for me to die naturally. He wants money now to spend on his girlfriend. So he's been taking it. I have proof. Bank records, forged signatures, everything." "Are you going to turn him in?" Harold had smiled, but it wasn't a happy smile. "Not yet. But I've made arrangements. The will reading is going to be very interesting when the time comes. You just have to trust me and stay strong. Can you do that?" Simone had nodded, even though she didn't fully understand. Now, months later, packing her clothes while Derek and Vanessa laughed downstairs, she finally understood. Harold had been planning something. Something Derek didn't expect. She just hoped it was enough to save her. She heard footsteps on the stairs and tensed. But they went past the bedroom toward Derek's room. She heard the door close, then Vanessa's laugh again, louder now. They weren't even trying to hide it anymore. Simone closed her suitcase and set it by the door. Then she pulled out her phone and looked at the photos stored there. Pictures of better times. Except now she could see the truth in every image. Derek's fake smile. His hand barely touching her in group photos. The distance in his eyes. How had she been so blind? She deleted the photos one by one. That version of her life was over. That naive woman who'd believed in love and trust was gone. Tomorrow would reveal what came next. She thought about Harold's funeral just a month ago. Derek had given a short, emotionless eulogy about his father's business success. But when Simone had spoken, she talked about Harold's kindness, his humor, his strength. She talked about the man he really was. Afterward, Harold's lawyer, a man named Thomas Patterson, had approached her quietly. "Mrs. Bennett, I'll see you at the will reading," he'd said. 9 o'clock sharp. Don't be late. There'd been something meaningful in his tone. Something that made her pay attention. "I'll be there," she promised. He nodded and handed her his card. "If you need anything before then, call me. Day or night." Derek hadn't noticed the exchange. He'd been too busy accepting condolences from business associates who probably didn't even like him. Simone had kept the lawyer's card. It was in her wallet now, a small piece of hope. She lay down on the bed fully clothed. Tomorrow would come soon enough. For better or worse, her life would change at 9 o'clock. She just had to survive one more night. Downstairs, she heard Vanessa's laugh again, followed by Derek's. They were probably drinking Harold's expensive wine, celebrating their victory before it even happened. Let them celebrate, Simone thought. Let them think they've won. Because if Harold had taught her anything during those 3 years of care, it was that the smartest people were often the quietest. They watched. They planned. They waited for the right moment. And Harold had been a very smart man. Simone woke at dawn, her neck stiff from sleeping in her clothes. She could hear silence in the house, which meant Derek and Vanessa were still asleep. She got up quietly and went downstairs to the kitchen. The house felt different now. It didn't feel like home anymore. It felt like a place she was visiting, a place she had no claim to. By this afternoon, that feeling would be reality. She made coffee and stood by the kitchen window watching the sun rise. The yard looked beautiful in the early light. She'd spent 3 years maintaining these gardens while caring for Harold. She'd planted roses by the fence because they were his late wife's favorite. She'd created a small vegetable patch that Harold could see from his bedroom window. All of it would belong to Derek and Vanessa soon. Unless Harold had done something. Simone's mind drifted back to the man she'd grown so close to over the past 3 years. The real Harold, not the senile invalid Derek believed him to be. The first real conversation she'd had with Harold was 2 weeks after his stroke, after he'd come to live with them. He'd been frustrated that day, struggling to make his mouth form words. The speech therapist had just left and Harold was exhausted. Simone had brought him water and helped him into his recliner by the window. "Take your time," she'd said gently. "There's no rush." Harold had looked at her with those sharp blue eyes and slowly, carefully, he'd managed to say, "Thank you." 2 words. But they'd meant everything. From that day forward, they'd built a routine. Every morning, Simone would help Harold with his exercises. Every afternoon, they'd take short walks around the garden, with Harold using his cane and Simone supporting his weak side. Every evening, she'd read to him. But it was the conversations in between that mattered most. As Harold's speech improved, he'd started telling her stories about his life. About immigrating to America as a young man with nothing but $50 and a dream. About working 3 jobs while going to night school. About starting his manufacturing company in a tiny rented warehouse. "I made bearings," Harold told her once, his words slow but clear. "Small metal bearings for machinery. Nothing glamorous. But I made them better than anyone else. And I kept my word. If I said a delivery would arrive Tuesday, it arrived Tuesday. If I said a part would last 10,000 cycles, it lasted 15,000. That's how you built the company," Simone had said. "That's how you build anything worth having," Harold replied. "Keep your word. Do quality work. Treat people fairly. Simple rules, but most people can't follow them." Derek certainly couldn't. Even before Harold's stroke, Derek had been cutting corners at the company. Using cheaper materials. Missing deadlines. Blaming others for his mistakes. Harold had known. He'd known everything. "Why did you make him vice president?" Simone had asked once, about 6 months after Harold moved in. By then, they were comfortable enough with each other for honest questions. Harold had sighed. "Because he's my son. I kept hoping he'd grow up. That he'd learn responsibility. But some people never learn. They just get better at hiding who they really are. You should have fired him." "I should have. But I'm a foolish old man who loves his son, even when that son doesn't deserve it." Simone had squeezed his hand. "You're not foolish." "We'll see," Harold had said mysteriously. Those conversations had taught Simone more about business than her college degree ever had. Harold had a wisdom that came from decades of real experience. He'd explain market trends, negotiation tactics, leadership principles. He'd tell her about deals he'd made and deals he'd walked away from. "The secret to negotiation," he'd said one evening, "is being willing to lose. If you're desperate, people smell it. But if you can walk away, you have all the power." Simone had absorbed everything. She'd started reading business books from Harold's library. She'd asked questions about the company, about the industry, about management. Harold had been delighted to have someone who actually cared. Derek never asked his father anything. He avoided Harold's room as much as possible. But Harold had eyes and ears everywhere. He'd confided in Simone about 3 months before he died that he'd hired a private investigator. I needed to know the truth, Harold had explained. About what Derek was doing at the company. About his personal life. I had suspicions, but I needed proof. What did you find? Simone had asked. Harold's face had darkened. Everything. The affair with his assistant. The embezzlement. The way he talks about you behind your back. The way he's planning to divorce you the moment I'm gone. Simone had felt tears sting her eyes, even though she'd already known about the affair by then. Hearing it confirmed by someone else had made it more real. I'm sorry, sweetheart, Harold had said. You deserve so much better than my son. What are you going to do? I'm going to make sure you're taken care of, Harold had promised. Derek thinks he's smart. He thinks he's fooled everyone. But he's not smart. He's just cruel. And cruelty isn't the same as intelligence. A week later, Harold had called his lawyer, Thomas Patterson. Not the family lawyer Derek knew about, but Harold's personal attorney. The man had come to the house on a Tuesday afternoon when Derek was at work. Simone had helped Harold get ready for the meeting, dressing him in his good shirt and helping him to the study. Before she left them alone, Harold had reached for her hand. Whatever happens to me, you're going to be okay, he'd said. I promise you that. I'm more worried about you, Simone had replied. Don't be. I've lived a good long life. I've built something that matters. And now I'm going to make sure it goes to someone who'll appreciate it. The meeting had lasted 2 hours. When Thomas Patterson left, he nodded respectfully to Simone but said nothing. Attorney-client privilege. After that day, Harold had seemed lighter. Happier. Like a weight had been lifted. He'd spent his remaining weeks sharing more stories with Simone, teaching her everything he could about the business, about life, about being strong. One of their last conversations, just 3 days before he died, had stayed with Simone constantly. They'd been in the garden, sitting on the bench under the oak tree. The afternoon was warm, and Harold had been tired but content. You're a good person, Simone, he'd said suddenly. You know that, right? I don't know. I feel like I've made so many mistakes. Marrying my son wasn't a mistake. It was a miscalculation. There's a difference. You loved him based on who you thought he was. That's not your fault. I should have seen what he really was. Love makes us blind sometimes. But you're not blind anymore, are you? Simone had shaken her head. Good. Because what's coming next is going to require you to be very strong. Stronger than you think you can be. What's coming next? Harold had smiled. Justice. The kind that can't be undone or contested. The kind that's built on truth and law. Derek thinks he's won. But he's about to learn a very expensive lesson about underestimating people. I don't understand. You will. So, just remember what I've taught you. About business. About standing firm. About knowing your worth. You're worth more than Derek ever understood. And I'm going to prove it. 3 days later, Harold had died peacefully in his sleep. Simone had found him in the morning, his face calm, his body finally at rest. She'd wept then and she wept now, standing in the kitchen with her coffee. She'd loved Harold like a father. He'd been more family to her in 3 years than Derek had been in 10. The clock on the wall showed 7:30. An hour and a half until the will reading. Simone went upstairs to shower and change. She chose a simple black dress, professional but not flashy. She put on minimal makeup and tied her hair back. She wanted to look composed no matter what happened. When she came back downstairs, Derek was in the kitchen making coffee. He looked at her coldly. You look nice, he said. Trying to make a good impression on the lawyer? Won't matter. The will is ironclad. Simone said nothing. She just picked up her purse. Where's your suitcase? Derek asked. I told you to pack. It's by the door. Just like you asked. Derek nodded, satisfied. Good. Patterson's office is downtown. We should leave by 8:30. Where's Vanessa? Still asleep in your room, I assume. Derek had the decency to look slightly uncomfortable. Only slightly. She's coming to the will reading. That's inappropriate. I don't care what you think is appropriate. She's part of my life now. Get used to it. Simone turned away before he could see the look on her face. Not anger. Not sadness. Something else. Something harder. She thought about Harold's words. About being strong. About knowing her worth. In 90 minutes, everything would change. She was ready. Actually, Simone realized she needed to correct her memory. Last night hadn't been just any night. It had been calculated cruelty. After Derek told her to pack, after he'd informed her Vanessa was coming over, Simone had taken her small bag to the basement as instructed. The basement wasn't finished. It was cold concrete and exposed pipes, with an old couch and a space heater that barely worked. Derek had never asked her to sleep there before. This was a new level of disrespect. She'd sat on that couch for 20 minutes, staring at nothing before she heard them arrive upstairs. Not just Vanessa's voice. Multiple voices. Derek had invited people over. A party. Simone had climbed the basement stairs and cracked open the door. Through the gap she could see into the living room. Derek, Vanessa, and 4 other people from Derek's office. They had wine, expensive cheese, and they were laughing. "This is my house," Derek was saying, gesturing grandly. "Well, it will be officially tomorrow. Dad's will get read at 9. "I can't believe the old man finally kicked it," one of Derek's friends said, a guy named Brett who Simone had never liked. "Took him long enough." Everyone had laughed. Laughed about Harold's death. Simone's stomach had turned. "So you're really kicking out the wife?" Brett asked. "That's cold, man. Why should I keep her around?" Derek had responded. "She's useless. No job, no money, nothing to offer. Meanwhile, I've got Vanessa who actually understands me." Vanessa had smiled and kissed him. "Plus, I look way better in a dress." More laughter. "Where is the wife anyway?" someone asked. "Basement," Derek said casually. "I told her to sleep down there tonight. Didn't want her ruining our celebration." The group had erupted in laughter and shock. "You made your wife sleep in the basement?" Brett's girlfriend had asked, sounding uncertain. "She's not my wife after tomorrow," Derek said. "She's just a woman I'm evicting." Simone had closed the door silently and gone back to the couch. She'd wrapped herself in an old blanket and tried to block out the sounds from upstairs. The music, the laughter, the celebration of her destruction. But she couldn't sleep. So she'd spent the night thinking about everything Harold had told her. Every lesson. Every promise. Around 2 in the morning she'd heard footsteps on the basement stairs. The door had opened and Vanessa had appeared, clearly drunk. "Oh, you're still here," Vanessa had said, her words slurring slightly. "I thought maybe you'd left already." Simone had said nothing. "You know, I almost feel bad for you," Vanessa continued, leaning against the doorframe. "Derek says you used to be pretty. Hard to see it now. You look so worn out." "You should go back upstairs," Simone had said quietly. "What? This is going to be my house tomorrow. I can go wherever I want." Vanessa had walked further into the basement, looking around with distaste. "God, this is depressing. Did Derek really make you sleep down here? That's harsh even for him." "Vanessa, please go." But Vanessa had sat down on the other end of the couch, studying Simone with drunken curiosity. "Can I ask you something? Why did you stay? I mean, you had to know Derek didn't love you anymore. It's been obvious for years. Why didn't you just leave?" Simone had looked at this woman who'd helped destroy her marriage. This woman who'd had an affair with a married man and felt no guilt about it. "I stayed because I took my vows seriously," Simone had said. "I stayed because I believed in commitment. I stayed because I was taking care of Derek's father and someone needed to do it. I stayed because I'm not a person who runs when things get hard." Vanessa had laughed. "And look where that got you. Sleeping in a basement while your husband parties upstairs with his new girlfriend. Maybe running wouldn't have been such a bad idea." "Maybe you're right," Simone had said. "But at least I can live with myself." "Can you?" Vanessa's face had hardened. "I'm not the villain here. Derek and I are in love. You were just in the way. If you'd been a better wife, he wouldn't have looked elsewhere. If Derek wanted a better wife, he should have been a better husband." "Whatever helps you sleep at night," Vanessa had said, standing up unsteadily. "Or not sleep, I guess, since you're in a freezing basement. Anyway, see you at the will reading tomorrow." "Oh wait, no I won't. Derek said you're not invited to the post-reading celebration we're having. Just the will reading, then you're out." Vanessa had stumbled back up the stairs, laughing to herself. Simone had sat in the dark for a long time after that. She'd thought about Harold. About the life she'd built that was crumbling around her. About the woman she used to be and the woman she was becoming. She'd thought about justice. Around 4 in the morning she'd finally dozed off, her dreams full of Harold's voice saying, "Trust me, sweetheart. Justice is coming." Now, standing in the kitchen with Derek, those words echoed again. 1 hour until the will reading. 60 minutes until she found out if Harold's promise had been real. Derek left the kitchen to wake up Vanessa. Simone stood alone, her coffee cold in her hands. She thought about her suitcase by the door. About the studio apartment Derek had found for her in the bad part of town. About starting over at 36 with nothing. But she also thought about Harold's lessons. About standing firm. About keeping your word. About the power of being willing to walk away. Harold had been willing to walk away from his son. That must have been the hardest decision of his life. But he'd done it because he believed in something bigger than blood. He believed in character. Simone looked at her reflection in the kitchen window. She looked tired. Worn out like Vanessa had said. But there was something else in her eyes now. Something harder. Determination. Whatever happened at that will reading, she would face it with dignity. She would not cry. She would not beg. She would not give Derek or Vanessa the satisfaction of seeing her broken. Harold had given her his strength over those 3 years. Now she needed to use it. The clock ticked toward 8:30. Derek and Vanessa came downstairs, both dressed for the occasion. Derek in his best suit. Vanessa in a tight red dress that was completely inappropriate for a will reading. Ready? Derek asked Simone. Yes. Good. Let's get this over with. We have lunch reservations at 1. Me and Vanessa. To celebrate. They walked out to Derek's car. Derek drove, Vanessa in the front passenger seat, Simone in the back like she was being chauffeured. Or arrested. The drive downtown took 30 minutes. Derek and Vanessa chatted about their lunch plans, their honeymoon plans, their plans to renovate the house. They talked about Simone like she wasn't there. Simone looked out the window and said nothing. They arrived at Thomas Patterson's office building at 8:55. The law firm occupied the 10th floor of a sleek glass building. They rode the elevator in silence. The receptionist showed them to a conference room. It was elegantly furnished with a long table and leather chairs. Thomas Patterson was already there, a thin man in his 60s with gray hair and intelligent eyes. Good morning, he said professionally. Please sit down. We'll begin promptly at 9. Derek and Vanessa sat on one side of the table. Simone sat on the other side, separated from them by distance and so much more. Patterson opened his briefcase and pulled out several folders. He glanced at Simone and for just a second, something passed across his face. Not quite a smile, but something. Simone's heart began to beat faster. The clock on the wall showed 9 o'clock. Let's begin, Thomas Patterson said, opening the first folder. And Simone's life changed forever. Thomas Patterson adjusted his glasses and looked at each of them in turn. Derek sat back in his chair, confident and relaxed. Vanessa had her hand on Derek's arm, possessive and smug. Simone sat straight, her hands folded in her lap. The last will and testament of Harold Eugene Bennett, Patterson began, his voice formal and measured. Executed on March 15th of this year, witnessed and notarized according to all legal requirements of this state. Derek smiled. March 15th. That was just 2 weeks before Harold died. Perfect timing, Derek probably thought. Clear mind, clear intentions. Before I begin reading the specific bequests, Patterson continued, I need to inform you that this document contains several unusual elements. Mr. Bennett was very specific about how he wanted this reading conducted. I'm required to read the entire document without interruption. You'll have time for questions afterward. Just get on with it, Derek said impatiently. We all know what it says. Patterson gave Derek a long look. Do you? Something in his tone made Derek shift slightly. But his confidence didn't waver. Dad and I discussed this years ago. Everything goes to me. I'm his only child. We'll see, Patterson said and began reading. I, Harold Eugene Bennett, being of sound mind and body, do hereby declare this to be my last will and testament. I hereby revoke all previous wills and codicils. Standard opening. Derek nodded along. First, I want to address the nature of this document. Some people may question my mental competency, given my stroke 3 years ago. To address this concern directly, I have included video recordings of my meetings with my attorney, Thomas Patterson, showing my clear understanding of these decisions. I have also included a letter from my physician, Dr. Richard Chin, attesting to my mental clarity. Derek frowned slightly. This was more defensive than necessary. Why would Dad need to prove his competence? Patterson continued. Second, I want to state clearly that I have been fully aware of everything happening in my company and in my household for the past 3 years. Despite what some may have believed, my stroke affected my mobility and speech, not my mind. I have watched. I have listened. I have documented. The room grew quieter. Derek's smile faded. Third, before I distribute my assets, I must address several matters that have come to my attention. Patterson pulled out another folder. For the past 2 years, my son Derek Bennett has been embezzling money from Bennett Manufacturing. The total amount stolen is approximately $850,000. Derek shot to his feet. That's a lie. Sit down, Mr. Bennett, Patterson said firmly. You'll have time to speak later. I'm not sitting here and listening to these insane accusations. My father was senile. This will is obviously. Your father wasn't senile, Patterson interrupted. And I have proof. Bank records showing wire transfers to an offshore account in your name. Forged authorization documents with your signature. Email communications with your accomplice at the company. Security footage of you accessing files you weren't authorized to access. Should I continue? Derek's face went white. He sat down slowly. Vanessa was staring at him. Derek? What is he talking about? Shut up, Derek hissed. Patterson continued reading. I have reported these crimes to the proper authorities. Criminal charges are pending. This is not vengeance. This is justice. I built my company through honesty and hard work. Watching my son steal from it has been the greatest disappointment of my life. Simone felt her heart pounding. Harold had actually done it. He turned Derek in. Fourth, Patterson read, I must address my son's personal conduct. For the past 18 months, Derek has been having an affair with his assistant, Vanessa Price. Vanessa gasped. Her hand flew off Derek's arm. This affair has been conducted with astonishing carelessness. In my own house. With complete disregard for Derek's marriage vows or his wife's feelings. I have video evidence, witness statements, and documented proof of this affair. How? Derek demanded. How could you possibly? Your father hired an investigator, Patterson said simply. A very thorough one. Derek slumped in his chair, the confidence draining from his face. Now, Patterson said, we come to the distribution of assets. This is where things get interesting. He pulled out a new document. The following is my son Derek's inheritance. Derek sat up slightly, a flicker of hope in his eyes. To my son Derek Bennett, I leave the sum of $1. Silence crashed into the room like a physical force. What? Derek whispered. $1, Patterson repeated. Your father was very clear. As his only biological child, he legally had to leave you something. So he left you $1. That's your inheritance. No, Derek said, his voice rising. No, that's not possible. Everything else, the company, the house, the money, goes to someone else, Patterson finished. Derek's face went from white to red. Oh, he has no other children. His siblings are dead. Who gets my inheritance? Patterson looked directly at Simone. Your wife. The world stopped spinning. Simone couldn't breathe, couldn't think, couldn't process what she'd just heard. To Simone Marie Bennett, Patterson read, his voice gentle now, I leave everything. My entire estate. The company. The properties. The investments. The bank accounts. Everything that I own becomes hers, without restriction or condition. No. Derek was shouting now. That's insane. You can't do this. It's already done, Patterson said. The will is legal, properly executed, and ironclad. Your father made sure of it. Derek lunged across the table, trying to grab the will. Patterson smoothly moved it out of reach. Security, Patterson said calmly into his phone. She manipulated him. Derek screamed. She took advantage of a sick old man. This will should be thrown out. Your father anticipated that accusation, Patterson said. He pulled out a tablet and pressed play. Harold's face appeared on the screen. He was sitting in this very office, wearing the shirt Simone had helped him put on that day. His speech was slow but absolutely clear. His eyes were sharp and focused. If you're watching this, Harold said on the video, it means I'm dead and Derek is contesting the will. So let me be very clear. I am of sound mind. I understand exactly what I'm doing. And I am giving everything to Simone because she deserves it. Derek stared at the screen, his mouth opening and closing. Derek is my son, Harold continued on the video. And I love him despite everything. But love doesn't mean blindness. Derek has proven himself to be dishonest, cruel, and greedy. He stole from my company. He betrayed his wife. He treated me with contempt. He has shown no character, no integrity, and no remorse. On screen, Harold paused to catch his breath, then continued. Simone, on the other hand, has shown me nothing but kindness for 3 years. She cared for me when my own son couldn't be bothered. She listened to me. She respected me. She treated me like a human being, not a burden. She asked nothing in return. She expected nothing. And when I told her about Derek's betrayal, she didn't gloat or celebrate. She just looked sad. Sad for me that my son had turned out this way. Tears were streaming down Simone's face now. She couldn't stop them. So I'm giving everything to her, Harold said on the video. Not to manipulate Derek. Not to punish him, though he deserves punishment. But because Simone is the kind of person who will actually do something good with it. She'll run the company with integrity. She'll treat employees fairly. She'll build something that matters. And she'll do it all while Derek sits in prison for embezzlement. The video ended. The room was completely silent except for Simone's quiet crying. 2 security guards entered. Mr. Patterson? Please escort Mr. Derek Bennett and Ms. Vanessa Price from the building, Patterson said. They're no longer welcome here. You can't do this. Derek shouted as the guards took his arms. I'll fight this. I'll contest the will. Oh. You'll lose, Patterson said calmly. The will is unbreakable. The evidence against you is overwhelming. And you're about to be arrested for embezzlement. I'd suggest you call a lawyer. A criminal lawyer. Derek tried to pull free from the guards, but they held him firmly. Vanessa was crying now, mascara running down her face. Derek, what's happening? Vanessa asked. You said you were getting millions. Shut up. Derek screamed at her. Just shut up. The guards pulled them both toward the door. Derek looked back at Simone one last time, his face twisted with rage and disbelief. You manipulated him, he shouted. You're a gold digger. A con artist. Simone looked at him steadily, tears still on her face but her voice calm. I loved him like a father. That's something you never did. Derek lunged toward her, but the guards held him back and dragged him out. His screaming echoed down the hallway until the elevator doors closed. Then silence. Simone sat alone in the conference room with Thomas Patterson. She was shaking uncontrollably. Are you all right, Mrs. Bennett? Patterson asked gently. I don't understand, Simone whispered. Everything? He left me everything? Everything, Patterson confirmed. He slid a folder across the table. The company is worth approximately $42 million. The properties total another $8 million. Various investments and accounts add another $12 million. Total estate value, approximately $62 million. It's all yours. Simone stared at the numbers. They didn't feel real. Harold made arrangements for the transition, Patterson continued. I'm authorized to help you with everything. Board meetings, management transitions, legal matters, whatever you need. I don't know how to run a company, Simone said. Patterson smiled. Harold thought you did. He told me about your conversations, about everything he taught you. He believed in you, Mrs. Bennett. He believed you could do this. Simone looked at the folder in front of her. Inside was everything Harold had built. Everything he'd worked for. Everything he'd trusted her with. There's one more thing, Patterson said. He pulled out an envelope. Harold asked me to give you this. He wrote it the day before he died. Simone took the envelope with shaking hands. Her name was written on the front in Harold's careful handwriting. Take your time, Patterson said. I'll give you privacy. He left the room, closing the door behind him. Simone opened the envelope and unfolded the letter inside. Dear Simone, it began. If you're reading this, I'm gone and you've just learned the truth. I imagine you're in shock. That's okay. Take all the time you need. But when you're ready, I need you to be strong. Simone's hands trembled as she read Harold's letter. Dear Simone, if you're reading this, I'm gone and you've just learned the truth. I imagine you're in shock. That's okay. Take all the time you need. But when you're ready, I need you to be strong. Derek will try to fight this. He'll claim you manipulated me. He'll say I was senile. He'll drag this through court if he can. Don't let him intimidate you. Thomas Patterson is the best attorney in the state. The will is unbreakable. The evidence is overwhelming. You will win. You're probably wondering why I chose you. Let me explain. For 3 years, I watched you care for me with patience and kindness I didn't deserve. You weren't related to me. You weren't paid to do it. You did it because you saw me as a human being worth caring about. That's rare, Simone. That's precious. During our conversations, I saw your intelligence, your common sense, your integrity. You asked thoughtful questions. You challenged my ideas respectfully. You understood business concepts faster than people with MBAs. You had wisdom beyond your education. Most importantly, you never once asked me for anything. Never hinted that you expected an inheritance. Never treated me differently when you learned how much money I had. You just loved an old man who needed love. That's why I'm giving you everything. Derek will tell people you're a gold digger. Let him talk. The people who matter will see the truth. Now here's what I need you to do. First, take care of yourself. Get a good therapist. Process everything that's happened. Grieve the marriage you thought you had. Mourn me if you want to, Though I hope you'll remember me with happiness, not sadness. Second, learn the business. I've left you materials in a safe deposit box. Business plans, client lists, company history. Study it all. Talk to the good employees. I've left you a list of who to trust. Fire the people who helped Derek steal. Clean house. Third, don't try to save Derek. I know you have a kind heart. You might be tempted to drop the charges to give him another chance. Don't. Derek needs to face consequences. It's the only way he might ever learn. And honestly, he probably won't learn anyway. Some people are just broken. Fourth, build something beautiful. Take my company and make it even better. Treat employees well. Serve clients honestly. Build something you can be proud of. Fifth, and this is important, live your life. You're only 36. You have decades ahead of you. Don't spend them alone. Find someone who sees your worth. Have adventures. Be happy. That's the best way to honor my memory. You're going to do great things, Simone. I know it. I've seen your strength even when you didn't see it yourself. Don't let Derek or anyone else make you doubt yourself. You earned this. Not through manipulation or seduction, but through being a genuinely good person in a world that doesn't have enough of those. I'm proud of you. I'm grateful I got to know you. And I'm excited to see what you do with the opportunities ahead, even if I won't be there to see it. Thank you for making an old man's last years meaningful. With love and respect, Harold. Simone read the letter 3 times, crying through each reading. Harold's voice was so clear in the words. She could hear his cadence, his warmth, his humor. Finally, she folded the letter carefully and put it back in the envelope. She wiped her eyes and took several deep breaths. Then she stood up, walked to the door and opened it. Thomas Patterson was waiting in the hallway. "Are you ready to begin?" he asked. "Yes," Simone said, her voice steady now. "Tell me everything I need to know." They spent the next 3 hours going through documents. Patterson explained the company structure, the board of directors, the key employees, the major clients. He showed her financial statements, property deeds, investment portfolios. It was overwhelming. But as they talked, Simone found herself remembering Harold's lessons. The business concepts he'd explained. The management principles he'd shared. The market analysis he'd taught her. It started making sense. "The board meeting is scheduled for next Monday," Patterson said. "They'll be surprised by the ownership change, but they'll have to accept it. Harold owned 80% of the stock. You're now the majority owner and chairman of the board. What about Derek's position as vice president?" "Terminated as of this morning," Patterson said. "Security has already cleared out his office. His company credit cards are canceled. His access to all systems is revoked. And the criminal charges? The district attorney has all the evidence. They'll arrest Derek within the week. The case is very strong. He'll likely plead guilty to avoid a longer sentence." Simone thought about Derek in prison. Part of her felt guilty. But she remembered Harold's words. Don't try to save him. Derek needs to face consequences. What about Vanessa? She wasn't involved in the embezzlement, so no charges there. But she's fired from the company effective immediately. HR is handling that. The house. Yours. It was in Harold's name, not Derek's. Derek has no legal claim to it. You can change the locks whenever you're ready. Simone thought about that house. The home she'd lived in for 10 years. The place where Derek had humiliated her just last night. I want to sell it, she said suddenly. I don't want to live there anymore. Understandable, Patterson said. I can recommend a real estate agent. They continued working through details until late afternoon. Patterson's secretary brought them lunch, which Simone barely tasted. Her mind was spinning with information, plans, fears, and possibilities. Finally, around 4 o'clock, Patterson closed the last folder. That's enough for today, he said. You're probably exhausted. I am, Simone admitted. Where are you staying tonight? Do you need hotel recommendations? Simone hadn't thought about that. The house was technically hers now, but Derek might be there. The thought of facing him again made her stomach turn. A hotel would be good, she said. Patterson pulled out his phone and made a call. Within minutes, he'd arranged a suite at a luxury hotel downtown. It's on the company account, he said. Or your account now, I suppose. He drove her to the hotel himself. As they pulled up, he turned to her with a serious expression. Mrs. Bennett, Simone, I want you to know something. I've been practicing law for 35 years. I've handled hundreds of wills and estates. Harold Bennett was one of the finest men I ever met. And what he did for you, that wasn't charity. That wasn't manipulation. That was a smart man recognizing quality in another person. He believed in you. And I think he was right too. Simone's eyes filled with tears again. Thank you. The road ahead won't be easy, Patterson continued. Derek will make noise. People will gossip. You'll face challenges at the company. But you're tougher than you think. Harold saw that. Now you need to see it too. Simone nodded, not trusting herself to speak. Patterson handed her a business card. My personal cell number is on the back. Call me day or night if you need anything. Anything at all. I'm not just your lawyer. I'm your ally. She took the card gratefully and got out of the car. The hotel doorman welcomed her, and she walked into the gleaming lobby feeling like she'd stepped into another universe. The suite was beautiful. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. A king bed with soft white linens. A bathroom with a huge tub. Everything pristine and peaceful. Simone stood at the window looking out at the skyline as the sun set. This morning she'd woken up in a cold basement facing homelessness and poverty. Tonight she was standing in a luxury hotel worth $62 million. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. You think you've won. You haven't. I'll destroy you. Derek. Simone blocked the number without responding. Let him make threats. Let him rage and scheme. Harold had made sure she was protected. She ordered room service, the first real meal she'd had in days. While she ate, she pulled out the folder Patterson had given her. Information about the company. About her new responsibilities. Tomorrow she'd need to go to the house and pack her things. She'd need to change locks and arrange for the sale. She'd need to prepare for the board meeting on Monday. But tonight she just needed to process everything. She took a long bath, letting the hot water ease the tension from her body. Then she put on the hotel robe and sat on the bed, Harold's letter in her hands again. Build something beautiful, he'd written. Simone thought about the company. About the employees depending on it. About the clients trusting it. About the legacy Harold had built over decades of hard work. Could she really do this? Could she step into Harold's shoes and run a multi-million-dollar business? Doubt crept in. She wasn't formally trained. She'd never managed anyone. She knew theory but not practice. But then she remembered Harold's lessons. About keeping your word. About doing quality work. About treating people fairly. Simple rules that most people couldn't follow. She could follow those rules. She could learn the rest. Her phone buzzed again. Another unknown number. Another text from Derek, probably. But when she looked, it wasn't from Derek. It was from Patterson. Just heard from the DA. Derek was arrested an hour ago at his mother's house. He's being held on $500,000 bail. Thought you'd want to know. Simone stared at the message. Derek arrested. Derek in jail. She should feel victorious. Instead she just felt tired. And sad. Sad for the man Derek could have been. Sad for the marriage that had died. Sad for all the wasted years. But underneath the sadness was something else. Something Harold had given her. Hope. Hope for the future. Hope for the company. Hope for herself. She set down her phone and pulled out her laptop. She opened a blank document and started writing notes. Ideas for the company. Changes to make. People to talk to. Questions to ask. The doubts were still there. The fear was still real. But so was the determination. Harold had believed in her. Now she needed to believe in herself. Outside the window, the city lights sparkled in the darkness. Simone worked late into the night, planning her future. Tomorrow the real work would begin. Simone spent the weekend in the hotel, preparing for Monday's board meeting. Patterson had sent over boxes of files, and she read everything she could about the company's history, finances, and operations. On Saturday afternoon, Patterson called. Derek made bail, he said. His mother put up her house as collateral. Is he dangerous? Simone asked. He's angry, but he's not stupid enough to do anything violent. That would just add charges. Still, I've arranged for security at your hotel and at the company. Just a precaution. Thank you. Also, you should know, Vanessa gave a statement to the police. She's trying to distance herself from Derek. Claims she didn't know about the embezzlement. Did she know? Hard to say. But she definitely knew about the affair, obviously. And she definitely helped Derek hide it. Whether she knew about the financial crimes is unclear. Simone thought about Vanessa's visit to the basement that night. The smug confidence. The cruelty. She knew he was planning to kick me out with nothing. She celebrated it. That's not a crime, unfortunately. Just makes her a terrible person. On Sunday, Simone finally went back to the house. She brought 2 security guards Patterson had hired, just in case Derek showed up. The house was empty. And trashed. Derek had clearly been there in a rage. Picture frames were smashed. Furniture was overturned. Her clothes were scattered everywhere, some of them torn or stained. One of the security guards shook his head. "This is destruction of property. You could press charges." "No," Simone said quietly. "Let it go. He's facing enough charges already." She packed her remaining belongings carefully. Not much had survived Derek's rampage. Most of her clothes, her books, her personal items, all ruined. But she found the things that mattered. A photo album with pictures of her parents who died years ago. A jewelry box her mother had given her. Some letters from old friends. She also went to Harold's room. It looked untouched. Derek hadn't dared destroy his father's belongings, apparently. Simone stood in the doorway, remembering all the hours she'd spent there. Reading to Harold. Talking with him. Learning from him. "Thank you," she whispered to the empty room. "For everything." She found a box of Harold's favorite books and packed them carefully. She'd keep those forever. By evening, everything salvageable was packed in the security guard's van. Simone took one last look at the house, then locked the door and left. She never went back. On Monday morning, Simone dressed carefully for the board meeting. She wore a navy suit that she bought on Saturday, professional and authoritative. She kept her makeup minimal and her hair pulled back. Patterson met her at the company building. "Ready?" he asked. "No," Simone admitted. "But let's do it anyway." The building was impressive, 10 stories of glass and steel in an industrial park. Bennett Manufacturing was on floors 2 through 5. The executive offices and boardroom were on the top floor. As Simone walked through the lobby, employees stared. Some whispered. Everyone knew something major had happened, but few knew exactly what. The board meeting was scheduled for 9 o'clock. Patterson led her to the boardroom, a large space with a long table and leather chairs. 5 people were already seated, the board members. They stood when Simone entered, looking confused. "Good morning," Patterson said. "Thank you all for coming on short notice. I'm Thomas Patterson, Harold Bennett's personal attorney. This is Simone Bennett, Derek's wife," one of the board members said. An older man named Frank Morrison, according to the briefing materials Simone had studied. Derek's soon-to-be ex-wife, Simone corrected. And Harold Bennett's sole heir. Silence. Then chaos. "What? That's impossible. Where's Derek?" Patterson held up his hand. "Please sit down. I'll explain everything." For the next 30 minutes, Patterson laid out the situation. Harold's will. Derek's embezzlement. The criminal charges. Simone's new position as majority shareholder and chairman of the board. The board members listened in stunned silence. When Patterson finished, Frank Morrison spoke first. "This is unprecedented. Mrs. Bennett, with all respect, do you have any experience running a manufacturing company?" "No," Simone said honestly. "But Harold thought I could learn. He spent 3 years teaching me about this business." "That's not the same as actually running it," another board member said. A woman named Patricia Hughes. "I know," Simone acknowledged. "Which is why I need your help. All of you. Harold trusted you to serve on this board. Now I'm asking you to trust me to lead it. What's your vision for the company?" Frank asked. Simone had prepared for this question. She'd spent all weekend thinking about it. "First, we need to clean up the mess Derek made," she said. "I've reviewed the financial statements. Revenue is down 23% over the last 2 years. Client complaints are up. Employee morale is in the basement. Derek ran this company into the ground through incompetence and theft." The board members shifted uncomfortably. They'd all known things were bad, but hearing it stated so bluntly was jarring. "Second," Simone continued, "we need to return to the principles Harold built this company on. Quality products. On-time delivery. Honest business practices. We've lost clients because Derek cut corners and missed deadlines. We're going to win them back." "How?" Patricia asked skeptically. "By keeping our promises," Simone said simply. "By doing exactly what we say we'll do. By treating our clients and our employees with respect. These aren't revolutionary concepts. They're basic business ethics. But they work." She pulled out a document and slid copies across the table. "I've put together a 90-day plan. In the next 3 months, we're going to audit all current projects to ensure quality, reach out to former clients to rebuild relationships, implement new quality control processes, increase employee training and support, and establish transparent reporting systems." Frank picked up the document and read through it. His eyebrows rose. "This is actually quite thorough. Thank you. I had a good teacher." "What about leadership?" Patricia asked. Derek was vice president. Who's going to fill that role? No one for now, Simone said. The vice president position was created for Derek because he was Harold's son. Was a mistake. We don't need a vice president. We need a strong management team working together. I'm proposing we promote from within people who actually know their departments and care about this company. She pulled out another document. I've identified 5 key managers who fit that description. I'd like the board's approval to offer them expanded roles and compensation packages. The board reviewed the names. Slow nods around the table. These are good people, Frank admitted. Derek should have promoted them years ago. Derek was too busy stealing from the company to notice good employees, Simone said bluntly. More uncomfortable silence. Then Patricia spoke. Mrs. Bennett, Simone, I'll be honest. When you walked in here this morning, I thought this was going to be a disaster. I thought we'd have an inexperienced woman trying to play CO while the company collapsed. Simone braced herself. But you've clearly done your homework, Patricia continued. You understand the problems. You have realistic solutions. And you're not pretending to know everything, you're asking for help. That's actually good leadership. Thank you, Simone said, relieved. I'm still concerned about your lack of experience, Frank said. But I'm willing to give you a chance. With conditions. What conditions? First, you hire an experienced COO, Chief Operating Officer. Someone who's run a manufacturing company before. Someone who can handle day-to-day operations while you learn. Simone nodded. That was fair. Second, you meet with us weekly for the first 6 months. We need to stay informed and provide guidance. Agreed. Third, you're honest with us. If something's not working, if you're in over your head, you tell us. No pride, no stubbornness. Just honesty. I can do that, Simone said. Frank looked at the other board members. All in favor of accepting Simone Bennett as chairman and majority shareholder? 4 hands went up. Then after a pause, the 5th. Welcome aboard, Frank said. Now let's get to work. The rest of the meeting focused on immediate priorities. Derek had left several projects in crisis. Clients were threatening to cancel contracts. Employees were confused and worried about their jobs. Simone took notes and asked questions. The board members gradually warmed up, offering advice and support. By noon, they had a plan for the next week. After the meeting, Patricia pulled Simone aside. Can I give you some advice? Please. Don't try to be Harold. He was irreplaceable. Be yourself instead. Bring your own strengths, your own style. The company needs fresh leadership, not a Harold imitation. Thank you. I'll remember that. Patricia hesitated, then added, I knew about Derek's affair. I should have said something to Harold. I'm sorry. It's okay, Simone said. Harold knew. He knew everything. Over the next few days, Simone threw herself into work. She met with key managers, toured the facility, talked to employees, called clients. She worked 14-hour days learning everything she could. News about Derek's arrest spread quickly. Local news covered it. Company VP arrested for embezzlement. Employees gossiped. Clients called with concerns. Simone handled it all honestly. Yes, Derek had stolen from the company. Yes, he'd been arrested. No, it wouldn't affect their projects or services. The company was moving forward under new leadership. On Thursday, Derek's lawyer called Patterson. Derek wanted to negotiate. He's willing to plead guilty to reduced charges in exchange for a lighter sentence, Patterson told Simone. He's also willing to sign the divorce papers without contest. He just wants this to be over. What's he asking for? Nothing. He knows he has no leverage. He's just trying to minimize prison time. Simone thought about it. Part of her wanted Derek to face maximum penalties. But another part just wanted to move on. Tell him I agree to the divorce terms, no alimony from either side, clean split, she said. But I won't interfere with the criminal case. The DA can decide what charges fit the crime. Fair enough. On Friday afternoon, Simone was in her new office, Harold's old office, which she'd moved into that week, when her secretary buzzed. Mrs. Bennett? There's someone here to see you. She doesn't have an appointment, but she says it's important. Who is it? Vanessa Price. Simone's stomach tightened. The last person she wanted to see. But curiosity won out. Send her in. Vanessa entered a minute later. She looked different than the confident woman from that night in the basement. Her makeup was smudged. Her clothes were wrinkled. She looked defeated. Thank you for seeing me, Vanessa said quietly. Simone gestured to a chair but didn't speak. Vanessa sat down, not meeting Simone's eyes. I came to apologize, Okay. I was terrible to you. I helped Derek hurt you. I celebrated your pain. And I'm sorry. Simone studied her. The apology seemed genuine, but she didn't trust this woman. Why are you really here, Vanessa? Vanessa's face crumpled. Because my life is falling apart. Derek used me. I thought he loved me, but he just wanted someone young and stupid. Now he's in legal trouble and he's blaming everything on me. He told the cops I knew about the embezzlement, which I didn't. I'm probably going to be charged as an accomplice. Are you asking me to help you? No, Vanessa said quickly. I know you have no reason to help me. I wanted you to know that I'm sorry. And that you were right that night in the basement. I can't live with myself. What I did was wrong. What we did to you was unforgivable. Simone felt no satisfaction in Vanessa's pain. Just sadness for everyone involved. The truth will come out, Simone said. If you really didn't know about the embezzlement, the investigation will show that. But if you did know, you'll face consequences. Either way, that's not my decision to make. Vanessa nodded, tears rolling down her face. I know. I just wanted to apologize. For whatever it's worth. She stood to leave, then paused at the door. Harold was right about you. You're a good person. Better than Derek ever deserved. Then she was gone. Simone sat in the quiet office thinking about justice. Derek was facing prison. Vanessa was facing investigation. Their affair had destroyed multiple lives. And she was left picking up the pieces, building something new from the wreckage. But she was building. That was the important thing. She wasn't just surviving. She was creating, leading, growing. Harold had given her that gift. The gift of possibility. She looked at his photo on her desk. A picture of him smiling, healthy and strong from years before the stroke. I'm trying, she whispered to the photo. I'm really trying. And somehow she felt his approval. 3 months after the will reading, Bennett Manufacturing was showing signs of recovery. Simone arrived at the office at 7 each morning and often stayed until 7 at night. She'd hired a COO like the board suggested, a man named Robert Chang who had 30 years of manufacturing experience and infinite patience for her questions. You're a natural at this, Robert told her one morning as they reviewed production schedules. You see problems others miss. That's because I'm asking dumb questions, Simone said. I don't have enough experience to assume anything, so I question everything. That's not dumb. That's smart. Experience can make people blind to obvious issues. The turnaround was slow but real. Simone had personally called every major client Derek had lost. She'd apologized for the company's failures. She'd offered audits to prove quality was back on track. She'd negotiated new contracts with better terms. Some clients hung up on her. But most listened. And several came back. You're not what I expected, one client told her during a facility tour. Derek always talked about his wife like you were some housewife who didn't understand business. Derek was wrong about a lot of things, Simone had replied. The employees were responding well too. Simone made a point of walking the factory floor daily, talking to workers, listening to concerns. She'd implemented several suggestions from line workers that improved efficiency. She'd increased wages for the lowest paid employees. She brought back the annual company picnic that Derek had canceled. People are smiling again, the floor manager told her. That hasn't happened in years. But challenges remained. The company's reputation had been damaged by Derek's mismanagement. Some suppliers were demanding cash up front instead of extending credit. One major contract was still in jeopardy, with the client threatening to leave if quality didn't improve immediately. Simone spent a whole week personally overseeing that project. She met with the engineering team daily. She reviewed every specification. She watched production runs herself. And when problems arose, she worked with the team to solve them rather than blaming anyone. The contract was saved. The client was impressed. And word spread in the industry that Bennett Manufacturing was serious about quality again. Meanwhile, Derek's legal situation worsened. His lawyer had negotiated a plea deal, 6 years in prison for embezzlement, with possibility of parole after 4. Derek had taken the deal to avoid a trial that might result in 10 years or more. Patterson called Simone with the news. He'll be sentenced next week. The divorce will be finalized at the same time. Good, Simone said. She didn't feel happy about it. Just relieved that the chapter was finally closing. Derek's mother called me, Patterson added. She wants to meet with you. Simone was surprised. She'd met Derek's mother, Carol, a few times over the years. Carol had always been cold to her, clearly preferring to pretend her son's marriage didn't exist. What does she want? She didn't say, but she was polite. and she said it was important. Against her better judgment, Simone agreed to meet. They arranged to have coffee at a quiet cafe downtown. Carol Bennett was waiting when Simone arrived. She was in her 60s, well-dressed but tired-looking. She stood when Simone approached. "Thank you for coming," Carol said. They sat down with their coffee, awkward silence between them. Finally, Carol spoke. "I owe you an apology. Several apologies, actually." Simone waited. "I knew Derek was having an affair," Carol said quietly. "I knew he was treating you badly. And I said nothing. I told myself it wasn't my business. That marriages work themselves out. But the truth is, I didn't care enough to intervene. You weren't important to me. Why are you telling me this now?" "Because I was wrong. About everything." Carol looked down at her coffee. "Harold tried to talk to me about Derek. Tried to tell me our son had problems. But I didn't want to hear it. I thought Harold was just being difficult. Jealous because Derek was young and successful." "Harold wasn't jealous," Simone said firmly. "He was heartbroken. His son turned into someone he didn't recognize." Carol nodded, tears in her eyes. "I know that now. And I'm sorry I didn't see it then. I'm sorry I didn't support Harold. I'm sorry I didn't support you. What do you want from me, Carol?" "Nothing. I don't deserve anything from you. I just wanted you to know that you were right. You were always right. And Derek was wrong. And I failed as a mother because I raised a man who could treat someone the way Derek treated you." Simone felt a wave of unexpected compassion. Carol wasn't making excuses. She wasn't asking for forgiveness. She was just stating facts. "You didn't fail completely," Simone said. "Derek made his own choices. You can't control that. Maybe. But I could have taught him better values. I could have held him accountable. I didn't. And now he's going to prison." They sat in silence for a moment. "How is he doing?" Simone asked, surprising herself. "Angry. Bitter. Blaming everyone but himself." Carol shook her head. "He calls me from jail and rants about how you stole his inheritance. How his father was senile. How the justice system is corrupt. He's learned nothing." "I'm sorry. Don't be. You're not responsible for Derek's failures. Neither am I really, though I contributed. Derek is responsible for Derek." Carol pulled out an envelope. "I found this in Harold's things when I was cleaning out his storage unit. It's addressed to you. He must have written it years ago and forgotten about it." Simone took the envelope carefully. Her name was on it in Harold's handwriting, but the paper was yellowed and old. "Thank you for bringing this." Carol stood to leave. "I know you're running the company now. I hear you're doing well. Harold would be proud. Thank you. And Simone? If you ever need anything, and I know you won't, but if you do, you can call me. I may not have been a good mother-in-law, but I'd like to try being a decent human being moving forward." She left before Simone could respond. Simone sat alone with the mysterious envelope. She opened it carefully and found a single page, dated 7 years earlier, just after she married Derek. "Dear Simone, if you're reading this, something has gone very wrong with Derek. I hope you never have to read it. But just in case, I wanted you to know something. I see how Derek treats you sometimes. The small cuts. The dismissive comments. The way he doesn't listen when you talk. I see it and it worries me. You're a smart woman. A kind woman. You deserve better than my son is giving you. If things get worse, if Derek becomes cruel or abusive, please leave him. Don't stay out of obligation to me. Don't stay because you think it's the right thing to do. Just leave. You are worth more than whatever pain Derek might cause you. I hope I'm wrong. I hope Derek becomes the man I raised him to be. But if he doesn't, please remember, you have value beyond your marriage. You have worth beyond your relationship to my family. Be strong. Be brave. Be yourself. With admiration and hope, Harold." Simone read the letter twice, her vision blurred by tears. 7 years ago, Harold had already seen the problems. Already worried about her. Already valued her. She carefully folded the letter and put it in her purse. Another treasure from Harold. Another gift. That evening, Simone worked late on a proposal for a new client. It was almost 9 when Robert knocked on her door. "Go home," he said. "You're going to burn yourself out. Just finishing this proposal. It can wait until tomorrow. You've been here 14 hours. Simone looked up at him. Robert had become not just a colleague but a friend. He reminded her a bit of Harold, calm, wise, unflappable. "Can I ask you something?" she said. "Of course. Do you think I'm doing okay? Really?" Robert came in and sat down. "You want the truth?" "Always. You're doing better than okay." You're exceeding everyone's expectations, including mine. When you first took over, I thought we'd be lucky to keep the company afloat. But you've turned it around. Revenue is up. Employee satisfaction is up. Quality metrics are improving. You've won back 3 major clients. But you're working yourself to death. You're here before anyone arrives and you're here after everyone leaves. You skip lunch. You don't take breaks. This isn't sustainable. Simone sighed. I know. I just feel like I have so much to prove. To who? Everyone. The board. The employees. The clients. Everyone who thinks I didn't deserve this inheritance. Robert shook his head. Simone, listen to me. You've already proved yourself. Everyone who matters already sees that you've earned your position. The only person who still doubts you is you. Maybe. Not maybe. Definitely. You're an excellent leader. You're smart, fair, hardworking, and honest. Those are Harold's values, yes, but you embody them naturally. They're not borrowed. They're yours. Simone felt tears threatening again. She seemed to cry all the time these days. Thank you, Robert. I needed to hear that. Then hear this too. Go home. Get some rest. Come back tomorrow fresh. The company will still be here. She smiled. Okay, you're right. As she packed up her things, her phone buzzed. A text from Frank Morrison, the board chairman. Board meeting tomorrow at 10 a.m. Good news to share. Curious, Simone texted back. Can you give me a hint? You'll see. Just bring your smile. The next morning, Simone arrived at the boardroom at 9:30, giving herself time to prepare for whatever announcement was coming. The board members were all there early too, which was unusual, and they were all smiling. Good morning, Simone, Frank said warmly. Thanks for coming. Of course. What's the good news? Frank pulled out a folder. We just received this proposal yesterday. A major aerospace company wants to partner with us. They need high-precision bearings for a new aircraft project. It's a 5-year contract worth $28 million. Simone's eyes widened. $28 million? They specifically requested Bennett Manufacturing because they heard we'd return to our quality standards. They mentioned you by name, Simone. They said they were impressed by your personal oversight of projects and your commitment to excellence. This is incredible, Simone breathed. It is, Patricia agreed. This is the kind of contract that transforms a company. If we deliver on this, it'll lead to even bigger opportunities. There's more, Frank added. The board has been discussing your performance over the past 3 months. We're unanimous in our assessment. You've exceeded every expectation. You've saved this company from collapse and positioned it for growth. Thank you, but I had a lot of help. Let me finish, Frank interrupted gently. We want to make your position official and permanent. We're formally offering you the title of CEO, with a compensation package commensurate with that role. Simone was speechless. You've earned it, Patricia said. You're not chairman of the board as a courtesy anymore. You're the real leader of this company. It's time your title reflected that. I don't know what to say. Say yes, Robert said with a grin. He'd been invited to this meeting, apparently. Yes, Simone said, laughing and crying at the same time. Yes, absolutely yes. The board members applauded. Frank came around the table and shook her hand firmly. Welcome to the leadership team, CEO Bennett. Harold would be proud. As the meeting ended and everyone congratulated her, Simone felt something she hadn't felt in years. Complete, genuine happiness. She'd done it. She'd proven herself. Not through manipulation or luck, but through hard work and integrity. Harold had been right about her. And now everyone else saw it too. That afternoon, she called Thomas Patterson and told him the news. That's wonderful, Simone, he said warmly. You've come a long way from that basement, haven't you? I have. Thanks to Harold. Thanks to you, Patterson corrected. Harold gave you opportunity. You did everything else. After hanging up, Simone sat in her office and pulled out Harold's photo again. I did it, she whispered. I actually did it. And she swore she could hear his voice, warm and proud. I knew you would. 6 months after taking over Bennett Manufacturing, Simone stood in a newly renovated conference room presenting to potential investors. The aerospace contract had been just the beginning. Now she was pitching an expansion plan that would double the company's size. Bennett Manufacturing has a 75-year history of precision and reliability, she told the room of suited investors. Under previous leadership, we lost sight of those values. But we've course-corrected. In the past 6 months, our revenue is up 42%. Client retention is at 98%. Employee satisfaction scores have doubled. She clicked to the next slide. Now we're ready to expand. We're proposing a new facility in the industrial district, dedicated to aerospace components. This will triple our production capacity for high-precision parts and position us as a leader in the aerospace supply chain. Questions came rapid-fire. Simone answered each one confidently, backed by data and realistic projections. Robert had helped her prepare, but the vision was all hers. By the end of the presentation, 3 investors had committed funding. Another 2 wanted follow-up meetings. "You killed it," Robert said as they walked back to their car. "We killed it," Simone corrected. "I couldn't do this without your operational expertise." "Maybe. But the vision is yours. The leadership is yours. I'm just the guy making sure the trains run on time." As they drove back to the office, Simone's phone rang. "Thomas Patterson." "Simone, I have news. Derek was sentenced today. 4 years in prison, eligible for parole in 3. "That's less than the plea deal," Simone said, surprised. His lawyer argued for leniency based on first-time offender status and Derek's cooperation with investigators. The judge was lenient. "How do you feel about it?" Simone thought about it. A year ago she would have wanted Derek to suffer more. Now she mostly just felt tired of thinking about him. "I feel fine," she said honestly. "It's over. That's what matters. The divorce is finalized too. You're officially no longer married to Derek Bennett." "Thank God. There's one more thing. Derek's mother wants to establish a victims restitution fund. She's offering to pay back everyone Derek stole from. She asked if you'd support her in setting that up." "Of course. Carol's trying to make amends." "I respect that." After hanging up, Simone felt a weight lift. The legal matters were finally finished. Derek was out of her life permanently. She could move forward without looking back. Over the next months, Simone threw herself into building the company. The new facility broke ground in July. She hired 60 new employees, focusing on people from disadvantaged backgrounds who needed opportunities. "Everyone deserves a chance," she told her HR director. "We're not just building a company. We're building lives." She also established the Harold Bennett Scholarship Fund, providing college scholarships to children of company employees. She created a profit-sharing program so employees benefited when the company did well. She implemented flexible schedules for working parents. "You're too generous," the company's CFO warned. "These programs cost money." "They also build loyalty," Simone countered. "Happy employees work harder. They stay longer. They care about quality. It's not generosity. It's smart business." The results proved her right. Productivity increased. Turnover decreased. Bennett Manufacturing was becoming known as a great place to work. In September, Simone was invited to speak at a business conference about corporate turnarounds. She almost declined. Public speaking terrified her, but Robert convinced her to accept. "People need to hear your story," he said. "Not just the business turnaround, but your personal one." The conference was held in a large hotel ballroom. Simone stood backstage, her hands shaking as someone introduced her. "Our next speaker inherited a failing company in the midst of scandal. In less than a year, she's turned it into one of the fastest-growing manufacturers in the state. Please welcome Simone Bennett, CEO of Bennett Manufacturing." Simone walked onto the stage to polite applause. She looked at the audience, hundreds of business leaders, entrepreneurs, and students, and felt panic rising. Then she saw Robert in the front row, giving her a thumbs up. She took a breath and began. "A year ago, I was sleeping in a basement," she said simply. The room went silent. She told her story. Not all of it, some details were too private, but enough. The basement. The cruel ultimatum. The will reading. The inheritance she never expected. "I didn't plan to become a CEO," she said. "I didn't even plan to work in manufacturing. But someone believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. Someone saw potential I couldn't see. And someone gave me an opportunity one hadn't earned yet." She talked about Harold. About his values. About his lessons. "Harold taught me that business isn't just about profit. It's about people. It's about keeping promises. It's about building something that matters beyond money. Those sound like simple principles, but they're revolutionary when you actually live them." She shared the company's turnaround numbers. The client wins. The employee programs. The expansion plans. "But the most important thing I've learned isn't about business," she said. "It's about resilience. A year ago I thought my life was over. I had no money, no prospects, no future. I was about to be thrown out of my home with nothing. And I felt like a complete failure." Her voice grew stronger. "But I wasn't a failure. I was just in a dark moment. And if someone had told me then what my life would look like now, I wouldn't have believed them. I couldn't have imagined this. She looked at the audience. If you're in a dark moment right now, if you feel like you've lost everything, if you think you'll never recover, I'm here to tell you that you're wrong. You can rebuild. You can reinvent yourself. You can create something beautiful from something broken. The applause started before she finished. It grew louder as she concluded her speech. People stood. The ovation lasted several minutes. Afterward, dozens of people approached her with questions and thanks. Young women especially, telling her their own stories of setbacks and struggles. "You give me hope," one woman said, tears in her eyes. "I'm going through a divorce right now. My husband is trying to take everything. I felt so powerless. But hearing your story makes me think I can survive this." "You will," Simone assured her. "You absolutely will." That night, Simone returned to her apartment. She'd bought a nice place downtown, nothing ostentatious but comfortable, and hers, feeling more confident than she'd ever felt before. She wasn't just surviving anymore. She was thriving. In October, the aerospace contract was completed ahead of schedule. The client was so impressed they immediately signed a second contract, this one for $35 million over 6 years. The board voted to give Simone a significant bonus. She accepted half of it and distributed the other half to the employees who'd worked on the project. "You're supposed to keep that money," the CFO said, exasperated. "I'm building loyalty," Simone replied. "Besides, they earned it." In November, Simone attended a charity gala for children's hospitals. She'd bought a table and invited several employees and their families. She was standing by the bar, talking with Robert and his wife, when someone approached her. "Simone Bennett?" She turned and saw a man about her age, tall with kind eyes and an easy smile. He looked vaguely familiar. "Yes. I'm James Rodriguez. I heard you speak at the business conference in September. Your story was incredible." "Thank you. That's very kind. I wanted to introduce myself because I think our companies might work well together. I own Rodriguez Tech Solutions. We design software for manufacturing processes. I'd love to talk with you about how we might collaborate." They talked for 20 minutes. James was smart, passionate about his work, and genuinely interested in what Bennett Manufacturing was doing. He asked thoughtful questions. He listened to her answers. "I'd definitely like to meet," Simone said, exchanging business cards with him. "Call my office and we'll set something up." "I will," James promised. Then he paused. "Can I say something that might be inappropriate?" Simone braced herself. Here it comes. The assumption that she didn't earn her position. "Your transformation is inspiring," James said. "Not just the business turnaround but your personal journey. My mother went through something similar, an ugly divorce, lost everything, had to rebuild. She eventually started her own business too. So hearing your story reminded me of her. It reminded me that people are stronger than they think." Simone relaxed. "Thank you. That means a lot." Over the next weeks, Simone and James did meet to discuss business collaboration. Their companies ended up partnering on a project to streamline Bennett Manufacturing's inventory systems. The partnership was successful. But something else developed too. A friendship. Then more than friendship. James asked her to dinner in December. Not a business dinner. A real date. Simone almost said no. She wasn't ready. Her divorce was barely final. She had so much going on with the company. But Robert's words echoed in her head. "The only person who still doubts you is you." "I'd like that," she told James. The date was wonderful. James was funny, respectful, and genuinely interested in getting to know her. He asked about her life but didn't pry into painful subjects. He shared his own story, a divorce 3 years earlier, no children, focused on building his company since then. "I'm not looking for anything serious right now," Simone told him honestly at the end of the evening. "Neither am I," James said. "But I'd like to see you again. If you're interested." She was interested. They started dating casually. Dinner once a week. Movies occasionally. Nothing intense. Just two people enjoying each other's company. "You seem happy," Robert observed one day at work. "I am," Simone realized. "I'm actually happy." By December, Bennett Manufacturing had exceeded all projections for the year. Revenue was up 78%. The company had hired 120 new employees. The expansion facility was on schedule. They'd won contracts with 3 new major clients. At the company Christmas party, Simone stood at the podium to give her annual address. She looked at all the employees gathered in the warehouse, workers in their best clothes, families with children, people smiling and laughing. "A year ago," she began, "this company was in trouble. Under previous leadership, we'd lost sight of our values. Quality had declined. Clients were unhappy. Many of you were wondering if you'd have jobs in 6 months. The room was quiet, remembering. Today, I'm happy to report that Bennett Manufacturing is stronger than it's been in a decade. We've won major contracts. We're expanding. And most importantly, we're doing it the right way, with integrity, quality, and respect for every person here. Applause broke out. But this success isn't mine, Simone continued. It's ours. Every person in this room contributed to this turnaround. Every person here made Bennett Manufacturing a company worth being proud of. So thank you. Thank you for trusting me. Thank you for working hard. Thank you for believing in what we're building together. The applause grew louder. Simone saw tears on several faces. Pride on many more. We're going to have an incredible year ahead, she concluded. And we're going to do it together. Merry Christmas, everyone. And thank you for making this the best year of my life. As the party continued, Simone stepped outside for air. The December night was cold but clear. She could see stars overhead. She thought about where she'd been a year ago. The basement. The ultimatum. The fear. And she thought about where she was now. CEO of a thriving company. Respected in her industry. Happy in her personal life. Free. I did it, Harold, she whispered to the stars. I built something beautiful. Just like you told me to. And somehow, in the quiet of the winter night, she felt his approval warming her like sunlight. 1 year after the will reading, Simone stood in her office at 7 in the morning, looking at blueprints for the new aerospace facility. Construction was ahead of schedule. They'd be operational by March. Her phone buzzed. A text from James. Good morning. Coffee later? She smiled and texted back. Can't today. Board meeting and 3 client calls. Tomorrow? It's a date. Their relationship had progressed slowly but steadily. 6 months of casual dating had turned into something more serious. James was patient with her hesitation, understanding why trust was difficult for her now. I'm not Derek, he'd said once when she'd pulled back emotionally. I'm not going to hurt you. But I understand why you're scared. Take all the time you need. She was learning to trust again. It was hard. But James made it easier. The board meeting started at 9. Frank Morrison called it to order and immediately turned to Simone. Before we begin regular business, I want to acknowledge something significant. Today marks exactly 1 year since Simone took over leadership of this company. In that year, Bennett Manufacturing has achieved the following. He pulled up a presentation. The numbers were staggering. Revenue up 94%. Client retention at 99%. 12 new major contracts. 180 new employees hired. New facility under construction. 0 safety incidents. Employee satisfaction scores increased by 150%. These numbers speak for themselves, Frank said. But numbers don't tell the whole story. Simone hasn't just saved this company. She's transformed it. She's built a culture of integrity and excellence. She's made Bennett Manufacturing a company people want to work for and do business with. Patricia spoke up. I was skeptical a year ago. I'll admit that. I didn't think someone without manufacturing experience could lead this company. I was wrong. Simone has proven that good leadership transcends specific industry knowledge. She has vision, integrity, and the ability to inspire people. Those qualities matter more than technical expertise. The other board members nodded in agreement. Therefore, Frank continued, the board has voted unanimously to extend Simone's contract as CEO for another 5 years. We've also approved a significant equity increase and a compensation package that reflects the value she's brought to this company. Thank you, Simone said, genuinely moved. Thank you all for believing in me, for guiding me, for supporting me when I made mistakes. You've made remarkably few mistakes, Robert pointed out. And when you have, you've corrected them quickly. The rest of the meeting focused on future plans. The expansion, new markets, strategic partnerships. Simone listened and contributed, still amazed sometimes that this was her life now. After the meeting, she returned to her office and found an envelope on her desk. Inside was a newspaper clipping. A small article about Derek's release from prison. Derek Bennett, former vice president of Bennett Manufacturing, was released on parole yesterday after serving 18 months of a 4-year sentence for embezzlement. Bennett declined to comment to reporters. 18 months. Derek was out already. Simone felt a moment of anxiety. What if he tried to contact her? What if he caused trouble? Then she remembered something Harold had written in one of his letters. Don't let Derek take up space in your mind. He doesn't deserve that real estate. She threw the clipping in the trash. Derek was out of prison, but he was also out of her life. Whatever he did next wasn't her concern. Her phone rang. Thomas Patterson. "Did you see the news about Derek?" he asked. "Just read about it. He's not allowed to contact you. That's part of his parole conditions. If he tries, call me immediately." "I will." "But honestly, Thomas, I don't think he will. Derek's ego won't let him face me. He'd rather pretend I don't exist." "You're probably right. Still, be cautious." After hanging up, Simone got back to work. She had a client presentation to prepare, a hiring decision to make, and a meeting with the architect about the new facility. At lunch, Robert knocked on her door. "Got a minute?" "Of course." He sat down looking serious. "I wanted to give you a heads up. I got a call from a reporter today. She's doing a story on corporate turnarounds and she wants to interview you." "What did you tell her?" "That I'd pass along the message. But Simone, you should know she specifically asked about Derek. About the inheritance. About the criminal case. This wouldn't be a puff piece about business success. It would dig into the personal drama." Simone considered it. A year ago she would have refused immediately. The thought of people knowing her story, judging her situation, would have been mortifying. But she'd given that speech at the business conference. She'd shared her story publicly. And the response had been overwhelmingly positive. "Tell her I'll do it," Simone said. "But on my terms. I'll talk about the business turnaround. I'll talk about Harold's mentorship. I'll talk about rebuilding my life. But I won't trash Derek. And I won't discuss details of the marriage that are private." "Are you sure? This will make you even more visible." "I'm sure. My story might help someone else who's going through something similar. That's worth the discomfort." The interview happened 2 weeks later. The reporter was fair and respectful. The resulting article, published in a major business magazine, was honest but kind. It focused on resilience, reinvention, and the power of mentorship. The headline read, "From Basement to Boardroom, How Simone Bennett Rebuilt Her Life and Saved a Company." The article went viral. Simone received hundreds of emails and messages from people sharing their own stories of setbacks and comebacks. Several universities invited her to speak. A literary agent contacted her about writing a book. "You're becoming famous," James teased one evening over dinner. "That's not what I wanted," Simone said. "I just wanted to save the company." "Too late now. You're an inspiration." "I'm just someone who was given an opportunity and worked hard." James reached across the table and took her hand. "You're someone who survived betrayal and transformed pain into purpose. That's not just anything. That's extraordinary." Simone squeezed his hand, grateful for his support. In March, the new aerospace facility opened. The ceremony was attended by company employees, board members, city officials, and representatives from their major clients. Simone cut the ribbon and gave a speech about Harold's vision and values. "This building represents more than expansion," she said. "It represents commitment to quality, to our employees, and to the future. Harold would be proud of what we're building here." After the ceremony, as she toured the new facility with various guests, someone approached her that she hadn't expected to see. Carol Bennett, Derek's mother. "Simone," Carol said quietly, "I hope it's okay that I came. I saw the announcement in the paper." "Of course it's okay. How are you?" "I'm well. I wanted to see what you've done with Harold's company. It's impressive." They walked together through the facility, Carol asking intelligent questions about the operations. It was clear she understood manufacturing. She'd been married to Harold for 15 years after all, before their divorce. "Harold would be very proud," Carol said finally. "You've exceeded even his expectations, I think." "Thank you. That means a lot." Carol hesitated, then asked, "Have you heard from Derek?" "No. And I don't expect to. He's working at a warehouse now. Loading trucks. It's hard for ex-convicts to find good jobs." Simone felt a pang of sympathy but also resolve. "I'm sorry his life is difficult. But those are consequences of his choices." "I know. You don't owe him anything. I just thought you'd want to know he's employed. He's trying to put his life back together." "I hope he succeeds," Simone said honestly. "I don't wish him harm. I just don't want him in my life." "I understand. And I respect that." They parted cordially and Simone felt closure. Even Derek's mother acknowledged that Simone had been right. That was enough. In April, James asked Simone to go away with him for a long weekend. They drove to a cabin in the mountains, away from business and phones and obligations. On Saturday evening, sitting by a fire, James turned to her with a serious expression. "I need to tell you something," he said. Simone's heart sank. Here it comes. The revelation that he's married or has some secret, or wants to break up. "I'm falling in love with you," James said. "Actually, that's not accurate. I've already fallen. I'm in love with you." Simone stared at him, speechless. "I know it's only been 6 months," James continued. "I know you're still healing from everything that happened. I'm not asking you to say it back. I'm not pressuring you for anything. I just needed you to know. Because I don't want to hide how I feel." Simone felt tears welling up. But these were good tears. Happy tears. "I'm scared," she admitted. "I'm scared of trusting someone again. Of believing someone loves me and then finding out it's a lie." "I know," James said gently. "And I don't blame you for being scared. Derek did real damage. But Simone, I'm not Derek. I don't want your money. I have my own successful company. I don't want to control you. I admire your independence. I just want to be with you. To support you. To build a life with you if you'll let me." She looked at this man who'd been patient with her walls, understanding of her fears, respectful of her boundaries. This man who'd never pushed, never demanded, never made her feel less than. "I'm falling in love with you too," she said quietly. "It terrifies me. But it's true." James pulled her close and they sat by the fire for hours talking about the future. About hopes and dreams. About building something together. "I don't want to rush anything," Simone said. "I need to take this slow." "We'll take it as slow as you need," James promised. "I'm not going anywhere." By summer, Bennett Manufacturing had secured 2 more major contracts. The company was now on track to hit $100 million in annual revenue within 2 years, a goal that had seemed impossible when Simone first took over. She hired a chief operating officer to handle day-to-day operations, freeing herself to focus on strategy and growth. She launched an internship program for engineering students from local universities. She expanded the scholarship fund Harold had inspired her to create. "You're building a legacy," Robert told her one day. "Harold started it, but you're making it bigger and better." In August, Simone hosted a company picnic at a local park. 300 employees and their families attended. There were games for children, food trucks, and live music. Simone walked through the crowd, greeting people, meeting their families, seeing the joy on their faces. These people had good jobs because she'd saved the company. Their children had healthcare and security because she'd fought to keep Bennett Manufacturing alive. This was what Harold had wanted. Not just a successful business, but a company that improved lives. A company that mattered to the community. As the sun set and families packed up to leave, a woman approached Simone. She was one of the factory floor workers, relatively new to the company. "Mrs. Bennett, I just wanted to say thank you," the woman said. "I was unemployed for 2 years before I got this job. I have 3 kids and I was about to lose my apartment. This job saved my family. And everyone says it's because of you. Because you cared about hiring people who needed a chance." Simone felt her throat tighten with emotion. "You earned this job with your skills and your work ethic. I'm just glad we could offer it. Still, thank you. You changed my life." As the woman walked away, James appeared at Simone's side. He'd come to the picnic at her invitation, meeting her employees and fitting in naturally. "You okay?" he asked, seeing tears in her eyes. "Yeah, just grateful. For all of this. You built this, Simone. You should be proud." "I am proud. But I also know I didn't do it alone. Harold gave me the opportunity. Robert taught me operations. The board guided me. The employees did the actual work. I was just the leader. The one who set the direction." "That's not just anything," James said. "Leadership matters. Vision matters. You provided both." In September, 1 year after her speech at the business conference, Simone was invited back as the keynote speaker. This time, she was introduced as one of the most successful turnaround CEOs in the country. She walked onto the stage confidently now, no longer terrified of public speaking. "2 years ago, I was sleeping in a basement," she began. The familiar opening. But this time she had an even better ending to share. She talked about the company's continued growth. About the lives changed through employment. About the scholarships and community programs. About building something that mattered beyond profit. "Success isn't about money," she concluded. "It's about purpose. It's about using whatever opportunities you're given to create something meaningful. Harold Bennett gave me an opportunity one didn't earn. But I made sure I deserved it. And that's what I encourage all of you to do, not wait until you deserve opportunities, but prove you deserve them once you receive them. The standing ovation lasted 5 minutes. Afterward, back in her hotel room, Simone called Thomas Patterson. "I wanted to thank you," she said, "for everything. For helping Harold with the will. For guiding me through the legal stuff. For believing in me when I didn't believe in myself. It's been my pleasure watching you succeed," Patterson said warmly. Harold would be over the moon with pride. "I hope so. I really hope so. I know so. I knew Harold for 30 years. I knew what mattered to him. And Simone, you've exceeded his wildest dreams. You haven't just saved his company. You've elevated it. You've made it a force for good in the world. That's what he always wanted." After hanging up, Simone looked at Harold's photo on her nightstand. She carried it with her to the conference. "I'm happy now," she told the photo. "Really genuinely happy. Thank you for giving me that chance. Thank you for seeing something in me I couldn't see myself. Thank you for believing I could do this." And she swore Harold smiled back at her from the frame. In October, James asked Simone to move in with him. She said yes. They found a house together, something that was theirs rather than his or hers. In November, Simone promoted Robert to president of operations, making him her second-in-command officially. "You've earned this 10 times over," she told him. "I couldn't do this job without you." "Yes, you could," Robert said. "But I'm glad you don't have to." In December, at the company Christmas party, Simone announced that Bennett Manufacturing would be giving every employee a bonus 2-week salary as a thank you for an incredible year. The cheers were deafening. As the party wound down, Simone found a quiet corner and looked out at the celebration. Employees dancing with their families. Children laughing. People happy and secure and proud of their work. 2 years ago she'd had nothing. No money, no home, no future. Now she had everything that mattered. A thriving company. A loving relationship. A sense of purpose. Respect from her peers. The satisfaction of building something meaningful. Derek had tried to destroy her. Instead, he'd freed her. The basement had been rock bottom. But hitting rock bottom had given her a foundation to build on. And what she built was better than anything she'd had before. James appeared with 2 glasses of champagne. "Toast?" he asked. "What are we toasting?" "To justice. To Harold. To you. To the life you deserved all along." Simone clinked her glass against his. "To the life I deserved," she agreed. And as she drank, surrounded by the company she'd saved and the life she'd built, Simone felt complete peace. She'd survived betrayal. She'd faced her fears. She'd proven herself. And now, finally, she was living the life Harold had always known she could have.